I'm absolutely delighted today to be interviewing Maria O'Dea, who is the head of the Event School London, or as I call her, the head mistress. Maria and I have a long friendship and working relationship together, and I just thought it would be a really good idea to have a little bit of a perspective of behind the scenes and what Maria's journey has been and how she got into education. So, as I say, I really am delighted to be interviewing her today, and it's a little bit of a turn of the tables as well, so I can maybe get my own back with a couple of awkward questions, but we'll see how we go. But first off, Maria, I just think it would be great for everybody to hear your story. How did you get into education, and in particular in the events industry?
The shift into education reminds me of how many people tell me when I ask their stories about how they got into events. They quite frequently say it was almost by accident. You know, they'd been working in a hotel, moved into events, or they'd been in marketing, etc. So I've been working in hotel management, hospitality, went for a job interview at an academy that specialised in hospitality, but it was meant to be for a marketing position, working with the graduates. But by the third interview, it had turned into basically a teaching position. And I thought, why not? I love to, meet people, be with people, help people. So that was the start of it. And I haven't really looked back since. I've been very fortunate that I've been able to spend time in training and education and then going back into industry and then back to education, because it's kept me fresh, connections, contacts, keeps you up to date with what it's really like. There's nothing worse than when I was at uni and you'd have a lecturer and they hadn't worked in the industry for 40 years. So I think it's really important, and there's a lot done now in education to make sure people keep those industry connections up, which is great. But yeah, that was my foray into education, and I worked for a national company in Australia before I moved over here, went back to industry, back to education.
Great. And obviously the event school's been going some time, possibly in sort of 2 incarnations, but people don't probably realize just how long you've had it for. Can you tell us about that?
That was probably another example of I guess responding to an opportunity rather than it being some great idea that I had a long plan for. I was working when I arrived in London. I did a consultancy at the Millennium Dome for training, and that was the first time I'd worked with really large events in the event industry. I've been involved a little bit with conferences from my hotel days, and from a training perspective, you're setting up meetings, etc. But the Millennium Dome was just such an extravaganza and such a spectacle. I love those things that are high profile and that are going to touch the lives of thousands of people. But I was only there for 3 months when I was offered a role at Excel, which is the exhibition and convention centre in London. So this is going back to 99 that I was there as part of the opening team. So I spent 3.5 years there building up and working with that team on the opening. And at the time, in East London, it was quite special. Like there hadn't been anything like that before. We had small venues, etc. Even for London, there'd been nothing like that before. So when I actually was pregnant with my son and I was thinking about what I'd like to do and would I stay in HR and training, and I got thinking that there wasn't really anything that would specialise in helping people get into the event industry, especially for local people. So funnily enough, it started out as something that I left Excel and it was part of actually a hotel group I created, hotel HTE school. So there was a hotel side and event side. And the plan had been to predominantly look after local people and help get them trained, which was a big part of what we did. For example, we trained, I think it was 220 people to prepare local people for the Olympics when that was coming up. But interestingly, over the years, it's become more of an international base that come over. I think being based at Excel and the nature of what we do attracts that international market. So yeah, the event school was sort of born as a faculty of a hotel school. I went back to Australia for a couple of years, so it was on hold for a while. When I came back to London, I thought, what's the part of what I used to do that I really love? So we relaunched the event school. So in essence, it's been around since 2005, and then as a standalone training provider since, again, late 2016, early 2017. So been on that side at Excel for a long time. Some people still think that I work for Excel. I'm over there so often, but I love it. It's a fantastic location, and terrific people to work with.
Yeah, no, it is. And sort of at the cusp as a lot of things started changing in the events industry then as well, as you say. I want to go back to one of the points you made, Maria, about you still being in the industry and sort of flitting between the two. And for me, I think that is one of the USPs of the Event School London, is that as lecturers, we are all out there doing what we preach, so to speak. Would you agree with that? And are there any other sort of USPs, or is that something you particularly sought out amongst us?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The importance of being, like, I don't feel I've ever left the industry. Even when I was education, I always feel like I'm part of the industry. And with the trainers, the instructors, and now with the online courses that we run, it is the most important thing. I always look for the industry experience first, because people from our industry, they can be engaging. They've been used to doing presentations. They're used to being with people. They love to support and help people. So in a ways, they're natural when it comes to being, a trainer or an instructor. So I always feel I'd prefer to help them gain the training skills rather than try and take people who are teachers who might think they're able to teach anything, events, etc., hospitality. But yeah, it is the absolute most important thing. And those connections, all of the trainers that work with me now are still working in industry. So those connections, associations that they have, their networks, that's brought to the classroom. So whether it means that their own examples and case studies are up to date, or the stories that they can tell from their own colleagues, or for example, like the site tours that you take your wedding planning students on, or Vicky with the event students, or Rachel with the venue students, those connections and ability to reach out and help our students become part of the event industry is the most important thing. The challenge now for us is doing that through our new online world that we all live in, but we've had great response from people to come and be guest speakers, obviously the virtual tours. And again, because our trainers' experience is so recent and fresh, they have so much to share, even in this kind of environment.
I agree, and I would say from my point of view, it is great that everything is anecdotal that we teach. So it's not straight out of a book. It's giving real life examples of everything. And
Absolutely.
that is one of the aspects that the students really, really appreciate. And secondly, as you say, the fact that we're all still in the industry, and obviously there's no guarantee with it, but as you know, with my students, I've got them jobs that they've gone up and set up on their own. We've been able to help them beyond just those 5 days that they've been with us.
Absolutely.
And again, just to come back to the Event School London, I feel that's another of the USP is your follow-up is exceptional in terms of how long you keep in touch and what you're there for in terms of guiding them with CVs, etc., and opportunities within the industry.
I think it is important because we offer predominantly very short courses, and especially for those who are looking at career change, not so much for maybe people who've come to do professional development and they're already in the industry. They still might want to keep in touch to ask questions, or they might have a specific situation at work or their company. But often for people, if they're looking for career change, it's not as easy as doing a 2-day or 5-day course and bang, that's it, you're in. Obviously, people can do a degree in event management that might take 4 years and still be looking for ways to get into the industry. So being able to offer that support, whether it's through, we're just about to launch new Facebook groups for the alumni, whether it's through post-course follow-ups, or just the fact, hopefully, that we're all open and friendly and welcoming, that if they have a question, they can just contact us through LinkedIn, our Instagram accounts. We've always got people contacting us through. So I think it's we don't feel like somebody just does a course, that's it. They become part of, it sounds a little bit of a cliche, but they become part of our family, of our industry, and that's what our industry's like. We had a guest speaker the other day, Roger. He and I met at Excel many, many years ago, and we don't keep in touch or speak every day, but every few years something crops up that we might end up working together or recommending something to each other. So I think it's the same with our students, our graduates, that we'll be there for them long term, because that's what people in our industry do.
Yeah, true. But I know that the support is very much appreciated, and it keeps creating opportunities for them as well, and keeping them on track, along with also obviously the various masterclasses that they can do further along the line, you know, to keep
Absolutely.
developing, which is another form of support. Um, and obviously, you know, I know from my course, but I know from across all of them, we've had some really interesting participants,
Oh,
haven't we?
yeah,
It's not just, you haven't got to just be London based and already in the industry. Are there any that you can sort of call to mind that you think, gosh, yeah,
yeah, I'm very fortunate, you know, because we do the training on site at Excel, and you know, I'm often able to come and meet the students myself. I try to go over and meet them when they are registering, and to pop back again at the end of the program. Sometimes I'm fortunate I see them throughout the week. There's been so many wonderful. We've just had someone recently who was Marley, who was over from Switzerland. She works for FIFA. She's a perfect example of someone who, in our industry, you know, you want to keep up to date, you want to keep fresh. And she has great experience in terms of stadiums and stadium search, stadium management. But she was looking to try and expand her knowledge in venue management. And it was, you know, really lovely to meet her recently. Lambert, who came up from Burkina Faso, who's one of the first to do one of our leadership courses, works out of our industry for a health organisation, but within that they do events. It's something that he's interested in, the leadership skills. I loved meeting up. Pedro came over from Brazil. He worked for Fox Sports, so from the TV perspective, but wanted to understand more about how a sporting event actually works, so that he could sort of increase his understanding of what was going on in front of his camera. Another group that I really enjoyed meeting of 3 ladies from Nigeria. I don't know if you remember them. They came up last year to do the venue management course. So that was Teo, it was Lara and Diakolola, and they were all from venues in Nigeria. And they weren't just here to learn about venue management, but they were really interested in like best practice, industry standards, because they're very keen to take that home with them and try and not just improve their own businesses, but to do something with the industry in Nigeria and to help improve things for everyone, which I thought was really laudable. It was very impressive. There's so many. I loved, we had a fantastic group from the BBC, from the Live Entertainment and Music Production Group. And they came to do a very specialist program with James and Tay in event production. So we sort of worked with them in the run-up to develop something specially for them. But, you know, just 20 people who had such different experience from, say, the wedding planners that I meet one day, the sports event, another day. It was some real highlights. I could go on.
Well, it's because you love it. But there, I mean, you have highlighted the variety of courses that are offered as well, and I think you know, that's the other thing that's perhaps unusual about the Event School London. We're all specialists in a variety of fields.
Absolutely. So we have our event management program, which focuses on the sort of the general skills that can be applied to any event. But then we appreciate that people often do have a specialist interest. They're interested in sports, they're interested in weddings, it's festivals. So we sort of created with the certificate program, again, then the venue side of it is a different specialism again. So if people are interested in those areas, I think it really helps if they can understand how that event planning process applies to their particular industry, their particular associations. As you'd know, with the weddings, every industry, every different type of event client has different expectations. Very different working with personal clients if you're party planning and wedding planning than corporate clients if you're working somewhere like, you know, Excel, for example. Although Excel have, you know, amazing range of events themselves, include consumer, trade, etc. The master classes as well, we take it to another specialist level. So that's where we introduce the corporate side, major sports events, outdoor events. One of the more recent ones was in venue marketing, doing venue strategies. Some of the new online micro courses have been really interesting. Sharif has developed something which is specifically around setting up your website to market an event for people who don't have a lot of those skills. So yeah, I think, as you said before, it lets people come in at a certain level and then take a specialism and then train as they go along with the master classes. the other thing too is we offer the short courses, which are 5 days, perfect for the international students because they want to come and have a London experience. But we've also started doing the Saturdays and the evening classes for people who work, locally, etc., and want to be able to study around it. And the online side it's been a very recent development. As you know, I love the face-to-face in London. Now, nothing beats being able to physically be in the room, share our experience, learn from each other, take them out and have an experience as well as a learning experience. But with the whole COVID situation, one of the positives is that we're able to now reach that wider audience, people who can't afford to come to London or couldn't make it for, take their holidays, etc. We've really been able to reach out and do something different now with the online side. And we're keeping that live interaction. We're not doing pre-recorded, we're not doing lots of PDFs. It is about that live interaction. It's still the face-to-face, but as we're learning, face-to-face these days means something very different.
I know, which brings me on to the COVID-19 situation. How do you think opportunities for the students and the graduate students have been affected by this?
I think we have to be realistic that it will, for the time being, it will perhaps slow opportunities. It will put some opportunities on hold because we are all globally in this very similar situation. But I think there's two things. I mean, human beings are very resilient. We bounce back. So over time, the world will right itself again. I know that you like me, we've been through a recession not that long ago. And I remember from my early days in Australia when the Gulf War was on, the hospitality, tourism, event industry being affected by that. So I think, one, it's about the general resilience and bounce back factor that we will as a global mankind do. And I think the other thing is that our industries, we're used to being adaptable, agile, having to change. The goalposts have changed. The clients change their mind. The venues had a fire in this room. We have to use a different space. The event opens, something totally unexpected happens. So I think the nature of our industry, it means that, we're quite creative. So we'll look at doing things very differently and be innovative in the solutions we come up with. And unfortunately, from changes like this, sometimes it creates opportunities. There'll be movement within the industry. Some people will decide to move out of the industry. Some people will decide to move from jobs into self-employment into jobs. I think the best way that our students and graduates I don't think these days you can future-proof your career, is to become an expert on the way that things are going to be. So be the go-to person who knows about social distancing, who knows what the legalities are, who knows what the restrictions are, who's watched every Zoom webinar, who's read every article, who can be the person, or in an interview when they ask you, we have to do an event, but we used to have 1,000 people, now we're only allowed this, what would you do? You know the answers. There's a lot of information coming out, as you'd know, thick and fast, about tools and things that can help you. But I think in any situation, it's about being the expert, having the knowledge, make yourself competitive, take courses if you can. If you can do one of ours, fantastic. If you can't because of time or your financial situation, there are a lot of free development courses out there that you can do about general skills. So I think that's what will see people through.
Yeah, it's certainly been an interesting time, and like you say, for us, adapting these courses to now online, which has been absolutely doable. And the thing that's excited me is that it's opened up to a new audience as well, or a new audience really, because we had our students, but
absolutely, we've had our first students from Russia joined us on the first online and event course. We haven't had that market before, that audience before. That was wonderful. Our first students from the Czech Republic, our second student from the Philippines, because I remember you'd had Michael who came over to study here, and that is the example, isn't it, that through adversity one door opens and one door closes, another opens, and we look for opportunity, we look for development, and we look to support each other as an industry while we rebuild.
Exactly. No. That's great. So hopefully it's given people a little bit of an insight to the person behind Event School London. It's really nice to interview you actually, Maria, and even though obviously I know your whole history and that, it's great to hear it all again there. And
oh no, it was a pleasure. And not
great.
too much of a grilling, so our long-term friendship will continue.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.